Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited you're here today because we are going to unpack a completely universal yet honestly deeply misunderstood part of the human experience. We're going to demystify exactly why our brains make incredibly fast snap judgments about people. And when I say fast, I mean really fast. Science tells us it takes as little as a tenth of a second, literally just 100 milliseconds, for your brain to make these calls. I mean, have you ever wondered why you instantly feel like you trust someone or why you immediately feel on guard around someone else before they've even finished saying hello? Well, today we are mapping out exactly what is happening in your mind during those crucial first seconds.
Okay, so let's dive into this. Let's be real, we all do it. You walk into a room, you lock eyes with a stranger, and bam, you already have a feeling about them. And a lot of us actually guilt about this, right? We think it's a personal flaw, or maybe that we're just being shallow. But I want to completely reframe that for you right now. Your brain is not judging instantly because it's lazy. And it's definitely not because it's mean. It's making a judgment because it is desperately trying to reduce uncertainty. Think about it. When you meet someone totally new, your mind simply cannot afford to wait for their full biography to decide how to act. It urgently needs to know, are you safe? Are you familiar? Are you approachable?
So I really want you to hold on to this core anchor concept for the rest of our time here. A first impression is simply the brain's first guess under uncertainty. Think of your mind kind of like someone navigating the incredibly complex, narrow, old-walled streets of a historic town. If you had to stop and thoroughly inspect every single brick and alleyway before taking a step, well, nothing would ever flow. You'd be totally paralyzed. So what does your mind do? It uses shortcuts. Throughout human history, speed often mattered significantly more than perfect precision. So a first impression isn't a final truth. It's just a fast prediction designed to keep you moving safely.
All right, moving into Section 1, the cognitive shortcut system, how the brain compresses reality. So, we know why the brain wants to go fast, but how exactly does it pull this off? The answer is compression. The cognitive shortcut system is literally a mechanism that takes the vast, overwhelming reality of a whole human being and compresses it down into a highly simplified, usable picture. Just like a camera with a blur filter turned way down, your brain isn't capturing every single pixel of the person standing in front of you. In psychology, these necessary filing systems are called heuristics, basically mental shortcuts. And I absolutely love this quote. The brain is not built to notice everything. It is built to notice enough. It sounds like a small distinction, but honestly, it is the profound difference between being totally flooded by the reality around you and actually being able to operate within it. This shortcut system groups people and situations into rough, recognizable categories, kind of like sorting utensils in your kitchen drawer. You don't deeply inspect the tines of every single fork, right? You just recognize the category instantly and toss it in. And this brilliantly illustrates the actual hidden process your brain goes through in a millisecond. It's a four-step sequence. First, it scans for tiny visible clues. Second, it aggressively compares those clues to your own personal library of past memories. Third, because the information is obviously incomplete, your brain, which absolutely hates open loops by the way, automatically fills in the missing gaps. And finally, it creates an action-ready prediction. Imagine you're crossing a busy road. You don't stop to do a deep psychological profile of every driver's intent. You make a fast judgment because delay is costly. Your brain does the exact same thing in social situations.
Now, what's really interesting about this illusion of certainty is just how believable it feels to us. One of the strangest things about first impressions is that when your brain makes this fast guess, it doesn't give you a little warning saying, hey, I'm just guessing here. No, it presents it to you as a solid, undeniable fact. Look at the weather app analogy. Your weather app gives you a very confident-looking little icon of a sun or a cloud. That icon is useful. Sure, it helps you decide whether or not to grab an umbrella. But it is just a model. It is not the actual complex sky. In our daily lives, we constantly mistake our brain's confident little model for the incredibly complex reality of the person in front of us.
Let's look at Section 2, tiny cues, big conclusions, the weight of small signals.
This brings us to a super fascinating question. If the brain is taking all these shortcuts, what exactly is it using to build this model? Well, it relies on tiny cues. We're shifting now to see how microscopic, almost unnoticeable details, like a really slight pause before someone answers a question, or a perfectly crisp shirt, or a distracted glance down at a watch, carry a completely outsized weight in our social forecasting. Psychologists actually call this thin slicing. It's the ability to find patterns in events based only on super narrow windows of experience. Think about the different jobs your brain assigns to these tiny cues. It looks at a facial expression and instantly infers warmth or anxiety. It listens to the tone of voice, which honestly often reveals way more than the actual words being spoken, and infers confidence or impatience. It checks posture to gauge openness or defensiveness. It's exactly like touching a wall to see if a whole building is warm. You aren't measuring the entire building, you're just using one small local signal to guess the rest.
But here is where the brain kind of plays favorites. Sometimes, a single cue feels infinitely stronger than 10 neutral cues combined. Why does that happen? Because of what we call diagnostic cues. Think about it. If you're cooking and you suddenly smell smoke, you do not care if the spice rack is perfectly alphabetized or if the floor is clean. You grab the fire extinguisher. You respond to the smoke. One strong signal just completely overrides the others because it feels urgent. Socially, a tense face might completely override really polite, friendly words. Your brain simply prioritizes the signal that feels closest to what might be their true intent.
Okay, section 3. Context changes everything, from signal to story.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that a cue on its own is, well, it's actually meaningless. It is never, ever meaningful in isolation. Context changes absolutely everything. A very direct, sharp tone of voice can sound incredibly rude in a casual coffee shop, but completely normal, maybe even expected in a high-stakes emergency room. The human mind takes a raw signal, merges it with the context of the environment, and jumps directly into a story. Let's walk through a highly relatable, everyday scenario to see this in action. Picture a high-stakes meeting in a busy downtown office. The pressure is on, the client is waiting, and the tension in the room is just palpable. Then, someone arrives 10 minutes late. When they finally sit down, they speak very briefly, and you notice they keep checking their phone under the table. Those are the raw, observable signals, and your brain takes those bullet points and desperately wants to weave them together into a coherent narrative.
And here's the premature story your brain instantly writes. Wow, this person is careless. They are totally disinterested, and they clearly don't respect my time. But let's take a step back and look at the possible reality. What if there was a massive, unexpected traffic delay? What if they are checking their phone frantically because they have a family member in the hospital with a medical emergency? The cues were completely real. Yes, they were late, and yes, they were checking their phone. But the story? The story was entirely premature. There's an actual scientific term for this: the fundamental attribution error. It's our weird human tendency to overemphasize a person's character traits when explaining their behavior while completely underemphasizing the situational circumstances. A first impression so often mistakes a fleeting, situational moment of stress for a person's permanent core character.
And finally, Section 4, Thinking Beyond the Guess, the shift in mindset. Now that you can see the hidden machinery behind these judgments, the incredible speed, the compression, the tiny cues, the jumping to stories, you can fundamentally change how you interact with the world. We are moving beyond the guess. You don't have to be a passive victim to your own brain's automatic forecasting system anymore. You now have the toolkit to kind of see the matrix, so to speak. This is the ultimate payoff of this entire explainer. When a fast impression hits you, you no longer have to jump straight to an automatic conclusion. You don't have to blindly obey that feeling as if it is the absolute final truth. Instead, you can empower yourself to shift into informed curiosity. You can notice the feeling, respect that your brain is just trying to give you useful data to keep you safe, but hold it lightly. You can ask yourself, hey, what tiny cue made me feel this way? Is there another context I might be completely missing here? You use the impression as a starting point, not the finish line.
I want to leave you with this lingering challenge. Tomorrow, or even later today, the very next time you meet someone new, I want you to take a split second to step back and ask yourself, what is my brain trying to guess right now? And then just pause. Ask yourself, are you seeing the whole person, or are you just seeing a temporary story your brain threw together to save a little time? Separate the signal from the story. Stay curious out there. Thank you so much for exploring this with me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.